We've been doing a lot of media, nothing mainstream except 4 minutes on Tucker Carlson. You were 2 nights ago, I guess, but entirely podcast space, really, and have been having a lot of fun with just these highly variable conversations, but with doing a lot of them. And there were 3 in particular that we either did this week or came out this week, all of which prompted some thoughts that I think are relevant to the kinds of things we talk about here, which, is to say, it could be anything, right? Let's talk about Michael Shermer first. Okay.
Yep.
So Michael Shermer is, I should have looked it up, but he's, the founder of Skeptic Magazine. And I think there's a Skeptic Foundation too, as well. And, I think the podcast is actually the Michael Shermer podcast, but it's all, sort of a type. And he is famously skeptical of, bad thinking and pseudoscience and such. And we had a very nice conversation with him. I think we actually had the conversation maybe a couple weeks ago, but it came out day of publication, maybe Tuesday of this week. And his announcement of our conversation, which I think he even announced it before the conversation itself was out. So no one could even see what it was that we had talked about. The number of people who came at him with, how dare you talk to these two? They are, quacks, scientifically illiterate, doing damage, all of these things.
Grifters, all the usual tropes.
All the usual tropes from that section of the internet that seems to get off on hating us, came after Michael Shermer for having had a conversation with us. And it revealed, in part, go on. You clearly want to say it.
Yeah, I do. We are watching a phenomenon that we are so familiar with unfolding in a novel place, right? And so what this looks like from our perspective is cancel culture, pure and simple. Mm-hmm. And the tropes are the same, right? What they do is they inflict costs on people for certain crimes that decent people realize aren't really crimes, right? Like talking to people that you don't agree with, right? So you will be stigmatized for what's called platforming, for having a discussion with people with whom you don't completely agree. And frankly, who do you completely agree with, right?
Or for going on someone's show whom you don't completely agree with.
Right, exactly.
So I think actually right now, Glenn Beck's show is actually streaming. We had that conversation in person with him a little over a week ago. And he begins the conversation with, we wouldn't have been in the same room together 10 years ago, right? We thought we were complete opposites. And the fact is that we can come together as human beings and see our shared humanity one another. And how is that bad for anyone?
Right. It's necessary. And smart people know that it's necessary. And so we watch, they just drive your costs. They're trying to drive up Michael Shermer's costs for even talking to us. And part of the point is to punish him so he won't do it again. And part of the point is to warn others so they will see what happens to Michael and think, I don't want any part of that. It's easier for me just not to talk to them, right? So this is about shaping the discussion. It is the thing that creates the walls between these echo chambers and makes it impossible to solve problems because you really don't understand the thing on the other side. You see it as a caricature. So it is the thing that facilitates bad thinking. And it's obnoxious, but I want to draw a distinction, right? So you mentioned our haters, of which we have some very dedicated ones, right? There are some, people like Michael Shermer, who's not a hater, but he is an influencer, and the haters have gone after him in order to shift the conversation so it doesn't contain uncomfortable truths that they cannot field, and so that we cannot navigate our way to a better synthetic understanding. And then there is this vast group of people who feed each other, right? And they are constantly posting things to each other. And I've begun to think of them as the wankin' file.
Oh, dear.
Yep, that's just how I file them in my mind.
The wankin' file.
The wankin' file. So they know who they are.
Oh, sure.
And we know who they are. But anyway, we need to pay attention because what's surprising about this moment from our side of the camera is the degree to which things that 2 years ago all sorts of smart people would have agreed were absolutely obnoxious and had no place in discourse. The heterodox community of people understood that guilt by association was a dangerous trope that prevented the kinds of discussions we needed to have. Well, some of those heterodox people are now engaging in this behavior. And so anyway, everybody who needs to step back and think, wait a second, have I become that thing that I hate?
Yeah. Basically, if you are engaging in the cancel culture du jour, it is no doubt because you are certain that you are on the right side of history. But if you have previously decried the idea of cancel culture because it is clear that you can't ever know if you are on the right side of history, well, then you are acting hypocritically and you are probably stuck somehow in your own thinking. You may be just dead wrong on exactly the topic on which you were proclaiming so loudly, and you might not be. But you are at the very least not honoring the very principles that you have in the past said that you would be standing by.
Yeah. It is not safe to cancel in the middle of a pandemic, I would point out. That's just a dangerous thing to be engaged in. And anyway, many people ought to know better.
Yeah.